I need to visit my sick mother. My wife lied on our anniversary. Hours later, I saw her Instagram post on a yacht with her ex. He's my soulmate, she bragged in the comments. I packed everything and left. When she returned home, she found nothing but an empty house and divorce papers on the floor. I, 32M, still remember the exact moment my 5-year marriage crumbled. It was our anniversary, and I had spent weeks planning what I thought would be the perfect evening. The restaurant reservations, the handwritten letter, even the small velvet box hidden in my jacket pocket containing the upgraded wedding ring she'd mentioned wanting months ago. Then the phone call came at 3 p.m. She answered with that concerned voice I'd grown to love over the years, the one that showed how much she cared about her family. Her mother was sick, she explained, rushing around our bedroom gathering clothes. Really sick this time. She needed to drive up immediately and stay the night, maybe longer. The disappointment in her eyes looked genuine as she apologized for ruining our special day. I offered to come with her, but she insisted I shouldn't miss work tomorrow for her family drama. She'd handle it alone like she always did. Her independence was something I'd always admired, even when it meant I felt shut out of certain parts of her life. Standing in our driveway, I watched her car disappear around the corner, the expensive dinner reservation now meaningless. The ring box felt heavy in my pocket as I walked back inside to an empty house that suddenly felt too quiet. That evening, I decided to order pizza and mindlessly scroll through social media while some action movie played in the background. I wasn't really paying attention to Instagram until a familiar face appeared in my feed. It was her college roommate's story, and there in the background of what looked like a sunset yacht party was my wife. My wife who was supposed to be at a hospital bedside. My wife who was laughing and holding a champagne glass. My wife who was standing remarkably close to someone I recognized from old photo albums. The blood rushed from my face as I screenshot the image and zoomed in. There was no mistaking it. That was definitely her. And that was definitely her ex-boyfriend from college, the one she dated for 3 years before we met. The one she'd assured me was ancient history when his name came up in conversations. I sat there staring at my phone for what felt like hours, trying to rationalize what I was seeing. Maybe her mom lived near where he happened to be. Maybe this was some weird coincidence. Maybe there was an explanation that would make sense of this betrayal. But deep down, I already knew the truth. My hands shook as I navigated to her Instagram profile. She hadn't posted anything new, but I checked her tagged photos and found more evidence. The same yacht, the same sunset, multiple angles from different people's accounts. In one photo, they were standing together looking out at the water. In another, his arm was casually draped around her shoulders. Then I found the comments that destroyed what was left of my naive hope. Under one of the photos, someone had asked about her relationship status. Her response made my stomach drop. She'd written about finding her soulmate again after all these years, about how some connections transcend time and circumstances. The hearts and fire emojis that followed felt like daggers. I called her phone immediately. It went straight to voicemail. I tried 3 more times with the same result. The rage that built up inside me was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Not just anger at the cheating, but fury at the elaborate lie, the manipulation of my emotions, the calculated way she'd used our anniversary as cover for her betrayal. The disrespect was staggering. I paced around our house looking at 5 years of shared memories. The photos on the walls, her clothes in our closet, the coffee mug she'd left in the sink that morning with a lipstick stain on the rim. Everything felt contaminated now, tainted by the knowledge of what she was really doing while I sat alone eating pizza and feeling sorry for myself. That's when something shifted in my mind. The hurt transformed into cold, calculating clarity. I walked to my laptop and opened a new browser window. If she wanted to play games, I could play games too. But I was going to play to win. First, I researched divorce lawyers in our area and sent consultation requests to the 3 highest-rated firms. Then I logged into our joint bank accounts and took screenshots of everything. Balances, transaction histories, automatic payments. I documented all of our shared assets, from the house down to the expensive kitchen appliances. By midnight, I had contacted a moving company for an emergency next-day service. Cost was no object. I wanted everything that belonged to me out of that house before she returned from her romantic getaway. The movers arrived at 7 a.m. sharp, and I directed them with military precision. My clothes, my books, my electronics, my furniture that I'd brought into the marriage, the tools in the garage, even my coffee maker that she'd never learned to use properly. Anything that was clearly mine or that I could prove I'd purchased was loaded into the truck. I left her belongings untouched, but removed every trace of my presence from the house. It was therapeutic in a way, watching 5 years of shared life get systematically erased. The movers didn't ask questions, probably assuming it was a standard divorce situation. The hardest part was deciding what to do about the gifts. The necklace I'd given her for her last birthday was sitting on the dresser. The expensive perfume from Christmas was in the bathroom. Even the anniversary ring in my pocket that she'd never get to see. I left everything except the ring, which I returned to the jewelry store for a full refund. While the movers finished loading, I drove to the divorce lawyer's office for an emergency consultation. I explained the situation, showed the screenshots and photos, and asked about the fastest possible path to dissolution. The lawyer was impressed by my documentation and assured me that with evidence of adultery and my organized approach, we could move quickly. By 2 p.m., the divorce papers were drafted and ready to be served. I returned to what used to be our house one final time. The moving truck had left, and the space looked oddly cavernous without my belongings. Her stuff remained, but the house felt hollow, like a stage set waiting for actors who would never return. I placed the divorce papers on the kitchen counter where she couldn't miss them, along with a brief note explaining that I knew about the yacht and her soulmate comment. I didn't elaborate or get emotional. I simply stated that all communication should go through my lawyer moving forward. Then I walked out of that house and didn't look back. I drove to the apartment I'd rented that morning, a furnished one-bedroom place across town. It wasn't much, but it was mine and it was honest. No lies, no deception, no performance required. My phone had been buzzing with texts and missed calls all day, but I'd been ignoring them. Finally, around 6 p.m., I decided to check the messages. The first few were typical, asking how my day was going, complaining about hospital cafeteria food, saying she missed me. Standard cover story maintenance from someone living a double life. But then the tone shifted dramatically. She'd apparently returned home around 4 p.m. and discovered the empty house. The messages went from confused to panicked to furious in rapid succession. She demanded to know where I was, where her stuff was, what the hell was wrong with me. She called me crazy, unstable, vindictive. Not once did she acknowledge what she'd done or attempt to explain the yacht photos. I turned off my phone and ordered Chinese takeout. Update 1. The next few days passed in a blur of legal meetings and logistical arrangements. My lawyer was efficient and aggressive, exactly what the situation called for. We filed for divorce, citing adultery and abandonment, requesting an expedited process. She tried calling from different numbers when she realized I'd blocked her. She showed up at my workplace, causing a scene in the parking lot until security escorted her away. She even contacted my parents, spinning some story about me having a mental breakdown and leaving without warning. But I'd already talked to my family, shown them the evidence, explained the situation calmly and rationally. They were shocked but supportive, especially my mother who'd never fully warmed up to her anyway. The most satisfying moment came when her own parents called me directly. They'd seen the Instagram posts too, apparently, and wanted to apologize for their daughter's behavior. Her father actually thanked me for handling the situation with dignity instead of causing a public scandal that would embarrass their family further. It turned out this wasn't her first rodeo with the ex-boyfriend. According to her mother, they'd been in on and off contact for years, meeting up whenever he was in town for business. Her parents had hoped marriage would finally end that chapter of her life, but apparently not. She hired her own lawyer, naturally, and tried to fight the divorce terms. She wanted half of everything, including assets I'd brought into the marriage and could clearly document as mine. Her lawyer quickly realized they had no leverage given the evidence of adultery and the fact that I'd been methodical about protecting myself. Update 2. 3 weeks after I left, she finally attempted real communication through her lawyer. She wanted to meet in person to discuss reconciliation, claiming the yacht incident was a misunderstanding and that she was willing to cut all contact with her ex-boyfriend. I declined through my lawyer with a simple message: actions have consequences. The Instagram posts were still up, by the way. I checked periodically, partly from curiosity and partly because my lawyer said they might be useful in court. She'd actually posted more photos from that weekend, including some clearly romantic shots that would make excellent evidence if needed. What amazed me was her complete inability to understand why I'd reacted so strongly. According to mutual friends who'd been contacted by both sides, she genuinely seemed to believe that her lies about her sick mother were justified because she didn't want to hurt my feelings. The mental gymnastics required to reach that conclusion were impressive. She'd apparently told people that I was controlling and possessive, that she'd been afraid to tell me the truth about seeing her ex because of how I might react. The irony was lost on her. She was right that I would have reacted poorly to learning about a secret relationship with an ex-boyfriend, but her solution of lying and cheating had guaranteed the worst possible outcome. My lawyer called with good news around week 4. She was ready to accept our terms and expedite the divorce. Apparently, her ex-boyfriend had gone back to his wife in another state, leaving her to face the consequences of her choices alone. Funny how quickly a soulmate connection could evaporate when real life intruded. Update 3. The divorce was finalized 8 weeks after I walked out. She got to keep the house, which suited me fine since I'd never want to live there again anyway. I kept my retirement accounts, my car, and my dignity. The settlement was clean and fair, with no ongoing financial entanglements. I ran into her once at the grocery store about a month later. She looked like she wanted to approach me, but I simply nodded politely and continued shopping. There was nothing left to say. She'd made her choice on our anniversary when she decided that lying to spend time with another man was more important than honoring our marriage. The strangest part of the whole experience was how quickly life normalized without her. I'd expected to feel lost or devastated, but instead I felt relieved. No more wondering why she was being secretive with her phone. No more gut feelings that something was off, but being unable to put my finger on what. No more walking on eggshells around topics that might trigger defensive reactions. I started dating again after 6 months, taking things slowly and being upfront about what I'd been through. I was surprised by how many women had similar stories of discovering partners living double lives. Apparently, my situation was sadly common. The woman I'm with now appreciates the fact that I don't play games or hide things. When she wants to see friends, she tells me where she's going and invites me if appropriate. When her ex-husband texts about their kids, she shows me the conversation without being asked. It's remarkable how easy relationships can be when both people choose honesty. I occasionally wonder if my ex-wife learned anything from the experience. I hope she did, for the sake of whoever she ends up with next. But I also know that some people are fundamentally incapable of taking responsibility for their actions or learning from their mistakes. Looking back, the yacht photos were probably the best thing that could have happened to me. Without that clear evidence of her deception, I might have spent years in a marriage built on lies, always sensing something was wrong, but never having proof. Instead, I got a clean break and the chance to rebuild my life on a foundation of honesty. The ring I was going to give her that anniversary? I sold it and used the money for a down payment on a motorcycle I'd always wanted, but she'd always vetoed. Every time I ride it, I'm reminded that sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the best outcomes. She wanted a soulmate who would enable her dishonesty and validate her poor choices. I wanted a partner who would respect our marriage enough to be truthful, even when the truth was difficult. We were fundamentally incompatible, and her lies just made that incompatibility impossible to ignore. I'm grateful she showed me who she really was before I wasted any more years trying to build a life with someone who viewed our marriage as optional whenever something more exciting came along. The empty house and divorce papers were just the beginning of my actual life, the one where I don't have to pretend that betrayal is acceptable or that love means tolerating lies. Some people deserve second chances. Others deserve to come home to empty houses and legal documents. She definitely fell into the latter category.